Hello and welcome. My name is Errity Green and this is Wise Woman Oracle and Tarot. And today I am bringing you a pick a card reading on what your heart wants most. I also set the intention for any energetic or emotional shifts that needed to occur or would be most supportive for you to occur, that those occurred today within the reading, and that was programmed or intentioned within this space. I think that happens anyway through the readings, any readings you watch here or elsewhere, but I still wanted to do that for you. If that is something you decline or don't want, or you want to set additional intentions like make this as loving and graceful and easy as possible, you can do that. Sometimes emotional shifts can be intense and other times they can be more easygoing. So that is up to you how you want to experience that. But ultimately, I do want to wish that for you to occur today because that's really what's going to support your transformation so that you can come into that heart energy or whatever it is your heart wants most easiest, if that makes sense. So if you are new to the channel, I welcome you here. I'd love to see you like, subscribe, join this community. If you are a veteran and someone who watches often, I'm so glad to see you again and for you to join me in this corner and have patience with me as I come out with videos a little bit more slowly as I've had a lot of health challenges the past several months. There are ways to support me, learn more about those health challenges below. Do share this channel, support this work. It's a really great way to get this word out there. Let me say one last thing. There are people I've seen out there with 100 videos or less who have 20,000 subscribers, 600,000 subscribers. I have 183 or so videos on this channel and I have less than 1,000 subscribers, and I was doing weekly videos for 2 years. So this wasn't a situation of me hop, skip, jump here and there. Sometimes uploading videos, I was always uploading videos. So your support matters. And yeah, I'd love to be able to share this work with you and with others. So every like, every subscribe counts. So I think without further delay, I will place a picture up now of your 3 card piles to choose from. As always, you are choosing from left to right. Okay, so card pile 1, right off the bat, when I first looked at your cards, before I had the chance to start recording, I already knew this was my more spiritual pile or my leadership pile. However you tend to connect with leadership, you know, there doesn't have to be a whole lot of like connotation around with that word or a whole like obligation or sense of duty with that word. However, I can tell that you are meant for great things, card pile 1. You might already know that. Some of you might be sort of sleeping on that. What is it called? A sleeping giant. And so I think really what you're going to be asked to do, and I haven't gotten there yet, but is awaken this sleeping giant. So you're being asked to come forward with your gifts, to be more pronounced, to be more present with your gifts, to share this. So I don't yet know why you've been sleeping on this and why you haven't brought it forward. Some things that come up right away is like maybe a tumultuous period in your life or a challenging period in your life, or maybe it just had to go to the back burner. It just wasn't a priority. Sometimes practicalities and circumstances ask that we give those our attention for a time before we can return to what's truly ours or what means the most to us. I hope we can get more information on that and see what's going on there. But right now, this message isn't coming through, but I remember when I was laying the cards out, sometimes you get bada bing, bada boom, you get all these messages. If you don't share them then, it can be difficult to then get them later. Other messages come through, right? Sometimes an inordinate amount of messages and you can't even keep up with them in a linear way to be able to communicate them. And so sometimes they land when you're just putting out the cards. And what came up was about believing in yourself. So maybe there was a slash to your confidence, your self-esteem, something happened that brought you down. Maybe it was a worldly event. Like maybe it wasn't even something that was specific to you personally, but it could have been, right? So it's not, I'm just not sensing any trauma here. There might be trauma and maybe you've done a lot of work with that. So it's not being or given too much attention to here, but it does feel like, you know, some things that were out of your control that ultimately led to where you are now. So it feels like that, not something as maybe deep or heavy as trauma, although that could have happened for you. Maybe you've worked through some of it, which is why it isn't as heavy, apparent, or obvious. But you're being asked to come out as your true essence, as your true self, who you're meant to be, what is meant for you. You're being asked to believe in yourself. We have the high priestess, we have the magician, we have peacekeeper, we have teacher. So we have a lot of energy here around, like I said, spirituality, leadership, coming into who you are, who you're meant to be. So let's see here. I'm trying to connect with the messages that I initially got when we first opened. Yeah, it feels like there is a new beginning promised here for you. So we say what your heart wants most. I feel like it's really coming into this energy again. I think there's something here about trusting yourself. So maybe somehow, some way there was a lack of trust or something that happened or occurred that led to you either, it could be either or and, like meaning it could be one or the other or both of these situations where you lost your trust in yourself, but also could have lost your trust in life, in God, in the universe, in the cosmos, where you said, you know what, never mind, forget it, I don't need it, or it's not for me, or whatever. But you're being asked to step up to the plate again. It's interesting too, because I don't yet feel the energy of like you're ready to step in front of that plate, but you're being called to move toward it in whatever way that it feels most relevant for you, like whatever your next step is. Begin to take steps toward what that looks like, because a new start, a new beginning is assured to you. So something here too, it feels like maybe things didn't go the way that you wanted them to go before, because there's definitely an emphasis on fresh start, new beginnings, trying again, stepping up to the plate. So maybe this is something you have tried before. Maybe you have tried to step into this energy, something didn't work out, something that, like, again, I talked earlier about something that was out of your control. Something happened and maybe it felt like your path was detoured or derailed, or something wasn't unfolding or working out as you planned. You're being asked, I feel like there's a letting go here, a letting go energy, a forgiveness energy, but it really feels like letting go, like not holding on so tightly to whatever this event was. There are better words for the message I'm trying to convey, but there's this, I'll show you the picture. Take a look at this picture here, where I feel like in this photo, now it can go any which way, right? I don't know for sure, when it comes to the artist, but of course art is always up for interpretation. That's how we interpret, that's how I interpret Oracle and Tarot, is yes, the visual, but also the intuitive messages that come through. And it feels like he released this stuff. He released it. And it feels like there's something here about letting go of whatever maybe you've been holding on to that's going to be supportive in you stepping into that role of teacher or mentor or high priestess or whatever that spiritual role is that we've been alluding to or working around. Because each of you might have a different role, and it might not always be this perfect defined spiritual role. It may very well just be your essence, who you are, like who you are already, your truest or most authentic expression, who you are when you are in your gifts and in your talents and abilities, like your skill set, when you're in your element. You're being asked to dream again, to believe in something again, to put your hopes in something again. And maybe your hopes were dashed, right? We talked about that earlier. Maybe I do feel like something like the rug was pulled out from underneath you, or something didn't work out, or something happened that really sucker punched you, and it might be hard to get into that space again, mindset, energy of believing in something again, hope, being hopeful towards something or being optimistic about something. But you are being asked to step into this energy again, because again, that fresh start is being guaranteed to you, meaning it's not, more than likely not going to turn out the way that it once did. So it's more or less saying, if you do the thing will occur, right? The thing you were seeking, the thing that you had hoped to occur, to unfold, to unravel, to whatever, it's going to also occur. But it does require you to take that leap of faith, which of course is a challenge if, again, that rug has been slipped out from underneath you before. Yeah, so it's like, how can you reconcile with your past, whatever it was that occurred? I'm not getting specific energy in this. When I do a healing reading, or like any kind of reading where it's like deep into trauma or facing your history, facing your past, your inner child, we do dive into those details more specifically. But more often than not, at least for my readings, are very much focused on empowerment, where it's like you've either already done the work, so you're already aware of this stuff, And or why give more attention and energy to something that's already been a part of your field, your awareness, your life for a long time? Let's give energy to the new thing or the next thing. And so I'm not getting those specific details of what occurred, but you are being asked to face the past. What is required for you to make peace with this? You might ask yourself that. What is required for you to make peace with whatever this is, whatever this was, whatever it was that happened? Life is almost making you, and this kind of gives me some emotions, where life is coming to you with a peace offering, with an olive branch, and it's saying, I'm sorry. What is required for your forgiveness? What is required for you to move forward? Whatever it is that I have done, personifying life here, God, cosmos, universe, the happenings of life, all of which we are part and parcel to and participate in, and more than likely even agreed to prior to our incarnation, if that's something that you do believe in. But ultimately it can be difficult for our human to swallow those hard pills at times, especially for very egregious, traumatic, or difficult things, where it's like life is saying, I'm sorry, I'm taking responsibility for this, for at least my part in this. How can we make peace? What can I do to support you? How can I help you find forgiveness? How can I help you find forgiveness? How can I help you find forgiveness? So you making peace with, you facing the past, and there is an olive branch being extended to you, and it's saying what would be required for you to let go, for you to forgive, for you to make peace, for you to move on. Yeah, it's saying whatever it is that was promised to you is still promised to you. I feel like it's like the energy of you'll get what's coming to you, but that sounds very like vindictive, and that's not at all what the energy is, because that's not it. It's like whatever it is that you deserve, whatever it is that you earned is still yours. So this is going to be afforded to you. This is going to be delivered to you. This is yours. So it's giving you that assurance, that reassurance, whatever you might need, that padding, that safety net of saying, you are assured success. You are assured success. You are assured success, or all will be well, or it all will work out, or whatever it is that's required will be afforded to you. That kind of energy. So it's saying, what is required for you to make peace with this, so that you can once and for all move on. Not that you have to, because I never want it to be about, okay, you have to forget something, neglect something. This would make me feel like this energy is more like, it sounds like something you've already processed, worked through, or whatever, and there's, for whatever reason, there's still something hanging on. And that's where God, life, universe, great spirit is saying to you, what is it you need from me so that you can let this go, right? So you can let this burden go. Yeah. So again, I feel like you are meant to shine your light. That's really what it comes down to. What does your heart want most? To shine your light, to be your truest essence, to be your most authentic and fullest expression, for you to step into or stand in your fullest potential, highest potential, for you to be and share and do all that you are. This does, again, there is a flavor of spiritual component to this, or spirituality, and that perhaps you're providing guidance or leadership for other people, providing support of some kind. Perhaps it's something like this. Perhaps it's something more like coaching or therapy or counseling. It doesn't have to be any one of these things. We do have teacher energy. We have priestess energy. We have teacher energy. So did I already say that? So there's something here for you in one of those areas. And again, it doesn't have to be defined by that box, or that term doesn't have to be used necessarily, but it is who you're meant to be. Let me see. I did want to ask, though, about what is the particular block that's holding you back, because I feel like that's going to be really helpful for you. And let me meditate on that for just a moment. So as soon as I turned off the camera, I didn't even have to meditate. It was immediate. It was a lack of trust. The block is a lack of trust. So you lack faith in life to show up for you. You lack faith maybe in yourself even, or even for others, for your community to show up for you. You simply lack faith and you lack trust. Now, the follow-up question to that should be, okay, so how do we clear that? 1 second. I do want to offer that to you as well. Right away, as soon as I turn the camera off, sometimes it just helps, right? It's venturing out again. I hate to say it, because people are like, I want you want to clear the block in advance of, right? You want to feel better before. You want to, people want the evidence before they make a move, right? But that's not what it's saying. It's like you're going to build a case for this, to trust again, to have faith again. It brings me emotions for you. Because of course I can relate to this as well. This is like part of our humanity, right? A universal collective wood, all of these are. And then whichever card pile we pick that day is the one we're vibrating with that day, right? It's going to be something different a year from now or 10 years from now. We're all just walking this human journey, facing the same woundings, experiences, et cetera, over a long period of time. But it's saying venture out, try again, start again, try anew. And then you're going to be able to build a case for faith, for trust. It's going to happen through experience and through even experimentation, where you're going to start to build that faith and trust again. It almost feels like, just like in relationships and human relationships, trust has to be earned again. Trust has to be built again. It might not be poof overnight. It's saying you have to trust enough to take that first step, to take that leap, and then you will see in each step that you take, you will start to build that trust, to build that faith. But don't be so quote unquote scaredy cat or ready to run that at the first sign where you think it's of defeat, of failure, of wrongness, of badness, of something going awry or whatever, that you run the other way. It's like, be present, be there in that step, face it, whatever it is, and focus on finding the evidence with each step that you take of trust, of faith, of belief that it's going to happen for you, that is happening for you, that this is who you are. So card pile 1, that's what your heart wants most, for you to step into this spiritual role, maybe this spiritual supportive or spiritual leader or teacher role in whatever form that applies to you. This really feels like potential. It feels like expression. It feels like who you're meant to be, sharing your gifts and abilities in some form. And this is going to unbreak your heart. So if your heart has been broken, if there has been a heartache, this is what is going to unbreak your heart. All right, card pile 1, that is your reading. If this lands for you, resonates for you, I want to hear your story. I want to hear how this resonates for you in the comments. Please do share which pile and how it relates to you so I can remember. I'd love to see you around on the socials, so check out the links below. Of course, do like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you, card pile 1. All right, card pile 2, what your heart wants most. So I feel like it got, when I pull these cards out, I oftentimes get some downloads right off the bat. And then of course I have to wait. I have to get through card pile 1, then I have to go through the series to get to the cards again and see what comes through. And so I feel like there are multiple facets when I first lay these down, but so stick around. If right off the bat what I'm saying doesn't connect, you might stick around for a few minutes to see what else comes forward as I move through this, because right now there's only sort of a one-dimensional aspect to this coming through. But if that doesn't apply to you, stick it out for a few minutes and see if more comes through for you and your situation specifically. I want to offer that disclaimer because I feel like it's taking a more linear path here. But when I had first laid these cards out, there was more to the story. So I feel like what you deeply want and crave for yourself is, and this sounds so cliche, but true love. But it's interesting too, because as I say true love, it's interesting. Well, I said that twice, but the reading is what your heart wants most. It's like, well, true love. And then it almost felt like your heart's desire. So I almost feel like it's a redundant sort of reading so far, because what does your heart wants most? Your heart wants your heart's desire. And it's like, well, thanks. But it feels like this deep, true essence of love. For some of you, if not most of you watching this is going to be partnership, companionship, romance, love, true love, that kind of Romeo Juliet. Not that it has to have all the toxic trauma bonding or any of that stuff in there, and guns, knives, weaponry from like the modern era version of the movie. It doesn't have to have all that. However, I do feel like it has that essence to it. Okay, so I just saw a message come through. That's why I paused. And so anyway, we're going to continue the reading. So I feel like you've spent a lot of time on your own. Okay, you've been on this quest, almost this silent vision quest. I have all this emotion. I feel like maybe it was a hard time for you because you were alone, and maybe it felt lonely or isolating. But you were doing some really deep and incredible work that was required, that I feel like was going to be really supportive for your line. And it's some work that I feel like you agreed to doing before you came here as a soul, if that's a belief system you can subscribe to, in terms of, committing to something prior to your incarnation. And I feel like you knew it would be hard. but you also trusted yourself, and you knew you were that strong of a soul, that old of a soul, that powerful of a soul, that you would be able to get through this, even though you knew it would probably be the most trying and difficult time of your human life for your human. So I feel like there was a really long, arduous, we could say painstaking quest. I don't want to put those descriptors on it because I don't want it to be something that's considered negative, because this was something that you felt was important for your family line and that you felt was important for the souls coming after you, maybe your children. This is very meaningful reading, as you can see. I did not cry this much card pile 1 although that was a very, very special, meaningful, profound reading, hands down, card pile 1. But card pile 2, this is a path that is less taken. Yeah, this is, it reminds me of, it's lonely at the top, those self-sacrificial paths that many of our spiritual leaders have taken, say the Buddha, or even Jesus and other spiritual leaders, where they've had to more or less sacrifice their own lives, their own personal life, their loves of their lives, their children, or whatever, and go out on this quest to really discover themselves and become or be themselves, who they were meant to be, what they were sort of contractually obligated to become in this lifetime. And it's interesting too, because my human side immediately goes to, well, the Buddha just up and left his family and his child, and how easy is it to drop all responsibilities and obligations and blah, 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 right? That's Errity. But I also know, of course, my greater awareness is that's a monumental challenge and sacrifice, and something to not be taken lightly, and no doubt was not a light or easy decision for him either. And that's just assuming that anything that we've heard is even accurate in the first place. But even if they are myths, right, it's important to respect the stories in these myths and sort of what they represent for all of us. So I feel like you took the path less taken. I feel like you've aged quite a lot. Now, it doesn't mean you've aged in years. This could have been a decades long journey for you. And that breaks my heart, because I feel like you did grow tired and weary, and maybe even sort of off the beaten path. And that has come up a couple times here. One meaning that few people are going to take this road, they just wouldn't do it, period. And then also that, there might have been a time where you sort of pulled out and, maybe didn't, where you end up kind of lonely or isolated, and yet you did agree to this, and you are or were doing the work or whatever, but it was hard, and I feel like you've grown old, in your own way. Not that you're actually old. You don't have to feel old. It could also be wise, right? Wisdom, maturity. You've filled your shoes in a really deep way, lived up to your potential in terms of what you are capable of and what you're capable of holding. Not that you would ever choose it maybe as a human, and maybe you are okay with that, but it just feels like this was something that you did that was this inner journey, like a quest of some sort, but an inner quest that was arduous and maybe just isolating, right, in some way. But it's saying the wheel is turning. There is a shift happening in this. I don't feel like that all of that energy is gone, but I do feel like the turning of the page, right? So if you're reading a story, the page has maybe been turned this much, okay? So you got maybe like 25% more. That people are like, oh God, no, especially if this has been decades long. But it doesn't feel like, another several years. This feels like it's coming to an end. This energy is leaving. It's almost like you've been in the dark or on this vision quest for a very long time, and then suddenly the sun comes out again, and it's almost hard to look, it's hard to see, and you got to move forward. And it reminds me a little bit of Castaway. I don't get that vibe necessarily, but just for a visual, if you've seen that movie, where Tom Hanks is on this deserted island. Oh my God. I'm going to start crying again. Tom Hanks is on this deserted island after a plane crash. He loses everything, loses his wife, his job, everything he knows. Of course, he's alone on an island. He has to, can you imagine what it takes to muster up the courage and the will to live and the skill sets and all these things to be able to feed yourself, shelter yourself, live through this for years and years, then finally build a raft and gets saved, and then he enters the world. He's almost like, is this what I signed up for? Because it's like lights, camera, action, people talking and clothes and all these things, and he can't even relate. So it's a lot. And so it has the energy of like re-entering of the world, but you're still like kind of at that space where it's almost too bright and you're still making your way forward. Had to take a break from my running nose. And so the wheel is turning, the shift is happening and taking place, and you are coming out of this era of solitude, this quest. Because what you ultimately want, when we come back to what matters most or what does your heart want most, it's that deep connection. But it's so interesting because remember when I said to hold on, wait a second, co-pilot 2, it's saying you want a relationship or romance, but it doesn't feel like just true love in terms of romance and framing it in only that way. It's like true love, like life's love, like the heart's fulfillment, right? Fulfillment of the heart's desire. It's something that almost we can carry with us in all moments. So it's like that connection and rapture with life, like that kind of energy that can come across or within the frame, or form of a romantic relationship or connection, which is going to be relevant for many of you, if not most of you, but also sort of this experience, this enlovement with life. That's not a word, I'm making that up, but that kind of experience where you're in love with life. What matters most, being in love with life, this deep, soulful, or maybe even spiritual connection, this living your heart's desire at each of your moments, greater connection with life itself, maybe in greater connection with your heart. And for some of you, that is going to be a partnership. And so it's saying like you've been on this long, arduous, isolating journey. It's been a quest. During that time, you were doing a lot of deep inner healing. I don't even know if you were 100% aware of what you were doing or what was happening or why it was happening. But underneath the surface, there was a lot of cellular upgrades happening, spiritual or quote unquote energetic shifts happening, where you were being built a different blueprint for what could happen for you. But this doesn't feel personal to you. It feels like you almost took one for the team. And we're like, I'll do this one, where it's like, okay, I'm going to work through these energies. I'm going to work through these patterns. I'm going to work through these densities. I know I can take this. I'm a very strong soul. I've done this before. It might be difficult, but I know I can do this for this family or for this generation or for this global consciousness, whatever. But it's saying that time, again, is coming to a close, right? You're sort of patching things up. I feel like all of that work feels complete. So it feels like you're on the tail end of that, like that work is complete, but now it's a matter of coming into the world again, like we were saying earlier. So it's like, yeah, you might have left the island behind, but there's still a lot of integration and assimilation that has to happen on the other side of that. That's going to bring you into this state of being that you're seeking. Because ultimately what you want was not what you were living out, but that's because what you were living out was required for this great healing or this alchemy or whatever it is that you agreed to as a soul. To do this sort of inner work, spiritual healing that was going to help out the future generations or just all generations, right? Something that we do for humanity itself might not always be directly relevant to us personally. Yeah, it's saying that the things that you seek do come to you. And right now it's about, I want to catch this. I feel like people are going to notice you for this. So there will be some rewards or public recognition ultimately for this journey. I don't know if it's going to be a one-to-one correspondence, like someone says, oh, hey, this is Tom Hanks from the Deserted Island who has come out now, and this is what they've been through, and look how special they are. I don't think it's going to be like that, but I do feel like it's going to be like people are going to know that you're different. People are going to be able to connect with that. They're going to be able to recognize the work, the sacrifice, the challenges and hardship that you went through. I feel like you will gain some semblance of respect. And this might also feed or develop or turn into the work that you develop, a body of work or a role that you develop in terms of who you become in the future. Sort of like the Buddha and Jesus, right? Where they left their homes, went on these quests, over time gained followers and shared their wisdom, et cetera, but ultimately became the Buddha and Jesus, okay? So it's like it ends up informing your body of work ultimately, or who you become, or what you end up doing or sharing, that does result in some kind of reward or public recognition. So this does happen to you over time. And I feel like the change in the blueprint, whatever it is you were changing within during that time where you were sort of stepping away out of the limelight, doing your inner work, it was informing this future that you were meant to experience. Like, it was not only making it possible, because it doesn't feel like it's the whole truth. I have to get comfortable. But it was like, it wasn't just making it possible. It was, because that is part of what it is, but that doesn't match the energy of what it is. So it actually feels like a reward. Honestly, it was almost like, you do this, you get this. I don't want to believe that life does that it like either gives us lessons or punishment, or like, okay, you did really good, here you go. But this feels like a reward. So it's like, you went through that, you did this. It was like your karmic payment, or maybe paying karmic debts. But it almost feels like it wasn't even a karmic debt. It feels like you were paying it forward. You were saying, I'm willing to move the needle forward. I'm willing to do this. And life comes around, and it gives you all of that and then some. But on the flip side, right? So no isolation and more hardship and challenge. Doesn't mean you won't obviously be human and experience those things, but that's not what you're going. That's not your reward. Your reward isn't more of that. It's like I said, the public recognition, that respect, maybe even coming into a role that affords you some kind of leadership or status or prestige or money or success. People know your name, something like that. And that's going to be different for everybody. It could be like, just to bring it down to earth, I'm not getting specific examples, but based on this energy, it could be something like you write a book, or you go and do healings in homes, or you are known in your family for this incredible transformation. You share your story on a stage. So your flavor might be different, but take that energy that we talked about and see how it might apply to your own heart, to your own wants, right? We're talking about what your heart wants the most. I feel like it was always this. It was these rewards. Now, again, we did talk earlier about romance. We talked about partnership. And again, for a good 60% of you, maybe 70% of you, that's why you're here. And ultimately, this journey can bring you to that space. But this feels like, to me, you were given like the riches of life, of any human life, like all earthly pleasures, because you were willing to take this journey. So let's see what else is here. Yeah, I feel like this journey comes to a close, and you are able to celebrate it and honor it and revere it for what it was. And I feel like it does change you. Okay, so it has changed you. Maybe you're not quite the same person who walked in, who's walking out, but it ultimately affords you, again, some prestige. There's an energy here. Like, you walk into a room, people are going to notice you. It's that kind of energy. And you are able to access things maybe other people are not able to access, not just energetically, but because people want to help, people know your name, people want to be known for helping you. It's like that kind of energy. Well, I mean, hello, let's think of, again, the Buddha, Jesus. Let's come around to that again, where it's like, people were happy to give, they wanted to follow them, they wanted to shelter them, house them, feed them, nurture them, whatever, wash their feet, in the whole 9 yards. It feels like people wanting to take care of you, to make sure that your needs are met. So you do find that level of fulfillment, that celebration. I do feel like there's additional information. Give me one moment here. So a couple things is, you come out into this being who is revered and very well respected. Whatever it was that happened to you or that you moved through, supported you to come into a stature. And I don't mean just a physical stature like prestige in the material world, but an energetic stature where people recognize you, know your name, and they can feel your strength of presence. There's a profound element to who you are and how you show up in a space. So there's something to that. But also, I want to read the from this card, because I feel like, again, this essence, this vibe, what does your heart want most? I mean, I think for many of you, you were confused for a time because you were in that energy and you were like, what in the actual F is going on? Okay, this is not at all what I want, not at all who I am. This does not feel right. You know, and you might have known at a deep, deep, deep level that this was meant for you, or that it was chosen for you, or that it was meant to happen, or whatever. But ultimately, you were like, what in the HE double hockey sticks? Okay, and so when it's talking about what your heart wants most, I feel like what is being offered to you is reassurance. This was something that was meant for you, or something that was chosen by you, and that you were doing some deep healing work that was going to help generations. backwards and forwards, and that you do leave this space behind. So you aren't meant to be there forever. You aren't going to be there forever. Right now, it sounds like that energy has come, or that chapter, the energy has come to a close, but you are still integrating into the new and into this fresh start. But ultimately, it brings you the rewards that you have likely always sought at some level, or were meant to receive as a soul. And knowing that what you wanted, this energy of the Lover's card, it says, embrace true love and deep, intimate friendships, make choices from the heart, vibrant health, or recovery from an illness. So perhaps some of you are waiting on or seeking out one or these things or some form of these things, which is why I wanted to share it. Because I think it can go many different ways. Like I said, when I first pulled it out, it felt like it was more about partnership, romance, but then there were many flavors and forms that kind of came out over time. And I feel like some of you are seeking deep connection with others, and we're sort of separated from that for a time. You want to live by the heart, but again, we're sort of, I think, even kept from the things that would have brought you fulfillment or joy because you had to do this first. And so you were wondering, like, what the heck is going on? But it doesn't mean that it's not meant for you forever. It just wasn't meant for you right then because you were meant to do this alchemy work. And then some of you are seeking vibrant health or recovery from an illness, and ultimately you are going to get that. Now, I do want to ask one more question, if there's anything more that you need to do, and I'm going to ask that and meditate on it and return to you. Okay, so right off the bat, it's joy, gather with friends. I know you kind of feel like this, you're coming out in the sunlight and that kind of things, but whatever way you can connect with others or get social or get support or be in community, again, be supported by your community, because ultimately the stories that you're telling and the wisdom that you've gained is what's going to amass this following, this respect, this reverence, and it's going to sort of naturally unfold this path for you that leads to that Lover's card, where there is recovery from whatever that was. If it's illness for you, there is deep friendship, there is true love, there is connected to the heart, there is this partnership, companionship, or romance. The pinnacle, whatever your pinnacle is for you uniquely, that life's value, that heart's value that you seek or desire for the most, is what you find on the other side of this journey. And perhaps it felt like you were kept from it for a while, but again, that was intentional. Part of your spiritual journey is that you're supposed to go through this profound transformation and to come through to the other side in a different energy and almost even a different person, but those rewards do come. So card pile 2, I hope this resonates for you. That was a very deep reading. Let me know how it lands. Do share your stories in the comments. I want to hear from you personally, how it's landing for you and how your circumstances or life experiences line up. Of course, you always can connect with me on the socials. You can check out all the links below. Like, subscribe, share, and I want to thank you, and I'll see you next time, card pile 2. Card pile 3, welcome to your reading. We are talking today about what your heart wants most. So I will be honest, this one took me a minute to sit with, because usually when I lay out the cards, I receive a lot of information, at least kind of gives me a foundation to work from. And then from there, everything just comes through very naturally and with fluidity, I guess might be the word. And this one, I had to meditate with it for a few moments before I started the camera. So it feels like what you want is, and this does remind me of card pile 2, but it's a totally different vibe. So perhaps you were connected to both, and if that's the case, then both of these are relevant for you. But I do feel like they're very different energies. However, I could see how one could be related to the other in the event that you were connected to both. So if you are listening to card pile 3, card pile 2 might also be relevant, because off the bat here, it feels like you are interested in a romantic connection, but it feels like a particular romantic connection. So your heart wants, I feel like, someone in particular. Card pile 2 touched on kind of romance, love, companionship, but it was more of like in a general sense, like ultimately family values, caring for partnership and companionship, wanting to have someone to share life with, or at least that sense of love and fulfillment, satisfaction with. This feels like someone, someone in particular, a relationship in particular. So perhaps this is someone you have history with, perhaps this is someone you're seeing now or dating. Perhaps this is someone you want to be in connection with or have a relationship with and you don't yet. But it does feel specific to a person, like you have your eyes set on, your attention set on, or your desire set on this person or this relationship or this connection, as opposed to, say, you're single, ready to mingle, and hoping to find someone you connect with, right? See how those are very different energies? So I feel like And as I'm saying that, though, it almost feels like some of you are just now ready for romance. So that actually might be the case for some of you. And as soon as I went on to the next card, it's like, well, I felt the energy of, oh, actually, there might be someone here who is now ready to move into romance. And they're, because it feels like for a time you were in this energy of retreat, it felt like you were untangling unhealthy and or toxic relationship patterns. So I feel like there was some wisdom that had to be gained between, say, your last relationship or connection and this either current one that you're seeking, because some of you, this might be reunion. So if you're a card pile 3 and this is more of reunion, you are interested in a specific person and connection and relationship, please let me know in the comments. And if you're someone who is like just open and now ready and primed or prepared for a romantic connection after a period of solitude where you were healing relationship patterns, let me know in the comments, because I want to see how this adds up. Because as I'm saying, I feel like you're seeking someone from your past even, and it's almost like there had to be a time and space for old patterns and the past history to die hard. I don't know what it is. But I mean, it probably did die hard because, let's be honest, it's really hard to do the work required to heal and rise above a lot of this stuff, and to step out of codependent relationship patterns, to step out of toxic relationship patterns. So perhaps this is a connection that was toxic at a time or unhealthy at a time. And because of the work that you have done, that you both have done, you've come out on the other side and perhaps are trying again, or at least maybe are willing to try again. And maybe that's why you're here. There's a willingness to try again, to see what happens, to see where you end up. But it doesn't have to be that case for everyone. Again, I asked you to tell me in the comments where you were and how this was landing for you uniquely. But it does feel like there was a time of solitude, and what you're being told is, so your heart wants the most love, partnership, this connection, this companionship, this romance. That's what your heart wants most. But you're also being told, hey, that solitude that you just experienced or that you are experiencing now, I feel like for many of you, you're sort of already on the other side of it or just on the other side of it, where it was to gain this wisdom to step into a relationship from a healthier foundation, from a healthier place than before. Okay. So coming into relationship with sovereignty, with autonomy, with more secure attachment, with knowing your own needs, knowing how to meet your own needs, knowing how to advocate for your needs, knowing who you are within a relationship, right? Sometimes it can be hard to know who we are, especially if we get into a relationship young, and then we know we might be this unit, but who are we on our own? So I feel like some of you are learning that. Some of you had patterns going back into childhood and your family of origin that were very codependent. So you were one to sacrifice or martyr yourself and not even know who you were, what you wanted. And so you got into these relationships to sort of find your other half, but literally and complete you. But then ultimately there was no you in the relationship. And if that's the case, you're going to find that your needs often go unmet or that you're not satisfied or fulfilled in a romantic connection. Some of you were in a situation where you were in a connection and you were receiving less than what you were giving or putting out. So you might be someone, again, who comes from a codependent kind of history in your family where you got in the habit of meeting other people's needs. That's how you sought approval and love, and you were given love based on how you met or not other people's needs. So I feel like autonomy is a big piece, codependency a big piece, like healing that, healing any toxicity, finding who you are within relationship, how to advocate for yourself, how to be your own self within a relationship. I feel like all this stuff was necessary for you to heal, to step into union, whether it be with this person or this person from the past or with any person. But that's what was going on during that time of quiet, during that time of peace or solitude or singledom or whatever. This is what was happening. A lot of that healing was happening where you're releasing the old, releasing those old patterns, so you could enter into this connection, this relationship, or any connection relationship from a whole new template, from a whole new blueprint where you were healthy and whole. I actually think that's what it is. Stepping into a relationship as a whole person, okay? A more secure person, meaning you don't necessarily need A, B, C, D, E, F, G from them. It's really nice to have that, and you like having that, and it means a lot to you to have that. But it's not like integral to how your day goes, for example. Because I do believe as humans that we need each other. I also know that a lot of our needs can be met within ourselves and that we tend to rely on other people a whole heck of a lot. But you also don't want to be on the other side of that where you only rely on yourself, right? You're entirely self-reliant. You never learn to or are willing to open up, be vulnerable, and lean on other people. So there is a fine balance there. And so you might find yourself on either side when we're talking about codependency in this reading. But I feel like whichever way you've been untethering yourself from that so you can walk into a relationship as a whole, healthy person and be able to contribute and receive from that place versus a half person expecting someone to complete you or them being a half person expecting you to complete them, etc., etc. So you gain some wisdom here. There's some lessons learned, some wisdom gained, and I feel like you were able to come out of this having evolved and having healed some of these patterns so that you can be a healthier partner within a connection or this particular connection that you're seeking. Yeah, it was about learning who you are, again, within relationship. I know some readings give you tons of new information and some of it just is redundant. But I feel like, yes, so you tend to be a devoted, loyal, overly committed person. You might fall on the other side of this, and so you're hearing how the other partner tends to show up. But I think most of the people who are listening tend to show up as the overgiver, sort of the overachiever in love, the one who's willing to lay it all down and worship and devote oneself, etc., whatever you need, I will give to you. I love you, and you love big, but ultimately you lose yourself, right? You're unable to advocate for yourself, for your needs. You find that, oh wow, wait, this relationship isn't meeting my needs. Maybe none of your relationships are meeting your needs, because if you're this kind of person, you tend to be this kind of person everywhere, not just in a romantic connection. So this was all about developing your own sense, again, of sovereignty. Sense of self, sense of sovereignty, sense of autonomy, where you could not just advocate for yourself, but meet your own needs. First of all, even know what your needs are, but then advocate for your needs and take charge of your own life, like take authority of your own life, like meaning if this relationship isn't meeting my needs, I'm willing to go elsewhere, right? Or I'm willing to have a conversation about my unmet needs, or I'm willing to reflect and see how I can meet my needs first and how I might be self-sabotaging, or how can I take responsibility for my needs? And then also, how can I communicate and convey these needs, right? So it can go any number of different ways where it's like you're willing to take responsibility and do your part in ensuring your needs are met within a relationship. And if they can't be met, then you're willing to step away too. There's a sense of maturity that has developed here, responsibility, accountability, willingness to do what it takes, but also willingness to love the self enough, right? So a lot of this is not just, I think that's what it is, balancing other love and self-love. That's really, I feel like what does the heart want most? I feel like you want connection or romantic connection, or even this particular connection, but what does your heart really want? Maybe even at the subconscious level is self-love. Doesn't mean you can't want the other love too, because I feel like that's why your conscious human came here, because that's very heavy, like not heavy, like, but like big, obvious, apparent in this energy and this reading. It's all about other love, like loving someone else, wanting to be with someone else, wanting partnership with someone else. But I feel like what you were learning during this time was self-love. It's like, hey, honey, like the universe talking to you, or divine, cosmos, God, great spirit, whatever you call it, was like, hey, I know you want some loving. I know you want some love in your life, but let me show you that, let's learn how to love yourself too, and or first, and then enter into other love. Okay. So it was like you were learning how to love yourself so you could enter into a relationship later where you could then honor yourself and be loved by other too. Okay. Because if we don't have self-love, we're going to tend to attract partners and or choose partners that really don't show up for us in a lot of ways. Why? Because we're not showing up for us. Like, okay, so if we enter into a relationship with a lot of self-love, we're going to enter into a relationship that commands respect, that commands honoring, that commands a high level of love and care and tenderness and warmth and taking care of and support, etc., whatever it is you seek from a relationship or romantic connection. But if we enter into a relationship with no self-love or a lack of self-love, we're going to even go into other relationships that have nothing to offer us because we don't care enough, know enough, value ourselves enough to want more, to desire more, to expect more. So we're just going to take what we can get, whatever breadcrumbs are offered, and there we go. So then it becomes more of a connection of other-based love as opposed to self-love. So you were learning self-love during this time, so So you come out on the other side and enter into relationships as, again, a whole healthy person who had a semblance or a sense of self-love, maybe even before or foundational, prior to, or at least alongside other love. And this is about trusting yourself, respecting yourself, and connection. So card pile 3, I can almost guarantee that most of you had codependent tendencies, tended to have unmet needs in relationships, were with people, chose people, selected people, attracted people that didn't meet your needs, couldn't meet your needs, didn't want to meet your needs, didn't know how to meet your needs, and then wondered why, how, why me, why isn't this working? It's because you were entering into relationships from a place of a lack of self-love, and if you don't have those standards or expectations in place, you're kind of willing to choose whatever, right? It's like, oh, there's a bunch of fish in the sea, but I'll just choose this one because it works, or whatever. It's like, and it doesn't mean that like we have to walk in there guns blazing with these ridiculous high standards, and most people won't make the cut. It's not that energy. It's just like, it's almost like something that isn't even thought of or considered. It's not like you're going in there again like wielding a sword. It's like I walk in and I command attention, I command respect, I command high treatment, because that's how I hold myself, because no other option is available, because it's non-negotiable, because I wouldn't consider any such thing, right? It's not even something you have to think of, though. Like the way I'm dialoguing it and giving it to you here, okay? But it's not even something you have to dialogue when you're living in integrity with it. Like when you are embodying it, it's not something you have to think about, dialogue about, reflect on, or analyze. It just is. You walk into a room, and if someone has nothing to offer you and is not going to give anything to you, you don't even have to even know that consciously. That person's not going to register on your radar. Okay, this is kind of the esteem you were learning and coming into during this period of aloneness or singledom, where you could really hold yourself in high standard, high integrity, and sort of command that treatment within a relationship through the embodiment of your own self-love. Let's see what else is here. Yeah, this is the energy that brings you what it is that you want. So it's like you wanted this relationship, this connection, this partnership. I don't know that all of you are going to end up in that connection. Some of you could or will if the other person has gone through a similar change, and both of you come into the relationship with this renewed blueprint or template of whole healthy person with a sense of self-love, then this could work. But I feel like you ultimately get what you want and become the embodiment of what it is you want because of this self-love, and you get those rewards. So like what your heart wanted was maybe this person consciously, but ultimately what your heart wants is self-love. Because it knows that when it loves itself, it can then connect with, select, choose, come into relationship with, or attract the kind of partner that also loves self, right? The balance of other love and self-love. So, but I do feel like for some of you, there is a reunion in your field, and it's up to you to discern, is this reflecting my self-love back to me? If you've come this far and you've been this far on your path and you've done the single journey or the solitude journey or whatever, and you've developed this strong sense of self-worth and self-love and high esteem, ask yourself this question, whether it be this connection or any connection, a connection, now or moving forward. Does this relationship or does this person reflect my renewed level of self-love? Is it worth all of the work and effort and journeying I've done to get here? The answer is no. This person or this connection or whatever connection now or in the future is not for you. Now, if you're still sort of vibrating at the old energy, and I say that not in a condescending way, but I really like to keep things down to earth and connected to the human and not just like all energetic. But sometimes there's only a certain way to say something. If you're still vibrating at those other levels of a lack of self-love, you might still be like, oh, anything, I'll do it because I like them and I want them. That's fine, right? That gets to be your choice. No one's going to judge your choice here. You get to do whatever you want. You might at some point learn self-love again through another series of challenges and hardships and tribulations, because evolution has no choice but to continue to move you into that vibration. So you're going to keep being moved there whichever direction you go. So some of you might try out a connection even when it doesn't reflect back that self-love, but then I feel like many of you are going to know pretty quickly. Again, it's not even something you have to dialogue with, reflect on, whatever. You're going to know this either connects, lands, resonates, or it doesn't. and you're being asked to ensure that it reflects the journeying that you've done. Is it worth it? And does it reflect the self-love that you now embody? This connection, this relationship, or whatever connection or relationship might come forward on your path. Because you've done a lot of deep journeying and deep work, and you want to make sure that the outcomes or reward is worth it to you. So what your heart wants the most is connection, is romance. It might even be this particular one, the person that you're thinking of. And the message here is saying you've done a lot of work, you've cleared or healed out these unhealthy or toxic patterns or things that kept you codependent or in a place of a lack of self-love. You come out on the other side and more of Empress energy, and this is where it ultimately brings you to where you can have an emperor. You can have someone else who matches that energy, and so you have to command that, right? So it's going to happen automatically through your embodiment. And there is this sort of lingering message, though, or guidance of taking note. Does this relationship, connection, person, whatever, reflect back to self-love? The answer is no. They might not be the person for you, because really, even though your heart wants this connection, the deepest desire is to have this love for yourself that is then reflected back to you. You don't want just any connection, any partnership, any person. You want the person who reflects back your level of self-love to you. What does that mean? It means you're actually loved in the way that you desire. Needs are met, or at least generally. You feel fulfilled, or at least generally. You feel like it's a match, or at least generally. And you feel like it's all been worth it, or at least generally. So card pile 3, that is your reading. That's what your heart wants most. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know how this is landing or resonating for you uniquely. I love to hear your stories. I love to hear your comments. Do check me out on the socials. All links are below. Of course, like, subscribe, share, and I will see you next time. Thank you, card pile 3.